Welcome to Season 4 of Revenge at the Drive-In. We're starting off the season with Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers from 1989, and Dario Argento's Inferno from 1980. I'm your host, Patrick, and I am here joined by...
Jim. Hello, everybody. Happy Season 4. Hello, Patrick.
What a way to start the fourth version of the same movie I've seen a bunch of times already in Halloween 5.
And a movie that kind of seems to lose track of its own plot near the end.
There's a plot? Yeah, well, Inferno is a whole nother bag of cats, shall we say.
Yeah, a wet bag of cats.
But before we get into that, we've got to talk about Halloween 5. Oh boy. A reminder for the listener is that Jim has not been on most of our Halloween episodes. In fact, this is your first Michael Myers episode, because you've only done the Halloween 3 one, right?
Yes, yeah, that's correct.
I trust you had seen Halloween 4, so you're up to date?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, well, let's dig into how they ignore a lot of the stuff that goes on at the end of Halloween 4, but they kind of don't, but they kind of do.
The only thing that carries over into this movie is Donald Pleasant's craziness.
He's not this crazy in the fourth one. This is the most crazy he gets in this series. You know, it's obviously I'm not a big fan of this film, but it's not to say there aren't things that I like about it. Like Donald Pleasance, boom. It's not his best performance in the series. He's like legitimately good in the first one, but he's just given free reign to do whatever crazy shit he wants in this movie, and that's one of the highlights of the movie. Maybe the biggest highlight, I would say.
Sheriff, they want you down at the cemetery.
Today in the cemetery, somebody dug up a coffin. It was a coffin of a 9-year-old girl. You've come back to us, Michael.
So, the movie begins. We get some pumpkin carving opening credits.
Is this the 10th anniversary of Halloween? Isn't this 10 years on from the first movie?
No, that was Halloween 4.
Oh. Oops. Never mind.
Yeah. This movie's so unspecial. It's the 11th anniversary. Oh.
Oh, no.
We, of course, in the grand tradition of lazy slasher sequels, we get a recap of the climax of the previous film. Think Friday the 13th. The first couple sequels did that. So we see Michael Myers on top of a truck fighting with, what's her name, Rachel?
Oh.
We don't see the rednecks in this part.
You're right, we don't.
He rips a redneck's, throat out in Halloween 4, which is pretty amazing. It's Rachel and Jamie. Jamie, of course, is Jamie Lee Curtis's daughter, allegedly. Mm-hmm. Jamie Lee Curtis died at some point, even though she'll be back. Several times throughout the series, but she's dead, so Jamie is living with her foster family, including her foster sister, Rachel. Rachel slams on the brakes. Michael Myers ends up... where is he? Is it it looks like a cemetery, kind of.
He's in front of like a salt mine, isn't he? And that's when he gets...
But yeah, so, the cops shoot him up. He falls down a mine. And then we finally see stuff we didn't see in the previous film because they throw sticks of dynamite out, and then we also see Michael crawling his way to the river.
Which he looks like somebody who's taken a whitewater rafting course, and he kind of floats down this river leisurely on his back.
Yeah, there's a very casual nature to it.
Casual Myers.
And then he ends up at some hermit's house. I don't know. This aspect of the story would have made more sense if this took place in the 1920s or something.
Well,
but yeah,
listen,
I guess there's some guy just living in the middle of nowhere.
But the best part about this hermit is that he has a parrot, like a tropical parrot, as a pet.
I thought the best part is that he looks like John Carradine. Makes a little bit of Ed Gein. He kind of looks like Ed Gein also, which is a little weird.
He's got that hat, right? And he's kind of like that same age,
So Michael shows up at the hermit's place, and he's about to kill him, but then he just collapses. And we are led to believe that he has just been lying down on the ground, basically in a coma, not medicated for a year.
Or that the hermit has maybe nursed him back to health.
Who knows? But yeah, and then this is where the story truly picks up. And by story, of course, I mean we're going through the motions, doing the same thing. Although a little bit of, give this movie a minor bit of credit in that they throw a little spice into the story. I mean, not much. It's like bell pepper levels of spice by having Jamie with this like weird psychic thing. But yeah, so Jamie, played by Danielle Harris, the heroine of the last film, until she stabbed her foster mother with scissors. I certainly felt, watching Halloween 4, I felt like they were trying to make it seem like she killed her, but here now we get a little bit of, I don't know if you could call it retconning, but I think they're realizing that, oh wait, we need this girl to be likable. We can't have a little 9-year-old girl who killed her mother. So it's like, she's okay. We never see her though, which is almost like she might as well have killed her, because we never see the foster parents in this film. They were barely a part of the last movie too, I think.
Yeah, and I think the only time they're really brought up is when at the very beginning, when they're like, when that nurse is like, "Do you want me to call your mom?" As she's having like a bit of a freak out in the bed.
Rachel also tells her like, "Mom and Dad send lots of love" or something. There's a few little like mentions of them being like out of town.
Mom's recuperating from her stab wound in Switzerland.
You know, Halloween, there's some traumatic memories there. Obviously, we know Halloween would be a traumatic date for Jamie Lee Curtis's character, you know, in a Halloween H2O, and she's like on edge on October 31st and everything. But, you know, how would you feel if you were stabbed by your 8-year-old foster daughter? I mean, I think you'd probably have some nightmares about that date too. It's like, it's not Michael Myers, but we still see this kind of, so yeah, the parents are just out of town and don't ask questions. I love it. But yeah, so anyways, we meet Jamie waking up in the middle of the night. She's got nightmares. She's at some kind of clinic. There's another boy there who has a crush on her and can't act, but I'm not going to be too harsh on him because he's like a 7-year-old kid.
Yeah, what's his name, Billy?
I think it's something like that. But yeah, he kind of sucked. That's the only other kid there who talks, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, they're all like in the background, but he's the only other one that's a character, I guess. But yeah, so Jamie continues to have these nightmares, and she's mute now. So this has changed as the result of the trauma that she went through. I guess this really, you know, the elephant in the room with Halloween 5 is the ending to Halloween 4. Like, how do you make a sequel to that? And ironically, the elephant in the room for Halloween 6 is the end of Halloween 5, because how do you make a sequel to this movie? Yeah, so let's talk about this, I guess. We're making this movie. We want Jamie to be likable. We want her to be... the original intention, I'm assuming, with Halloween 4 was that she would kind of go on to be another Michael Myers, and whether or not we actually see that in a movie. You know, you don't necessarily need a Halloween sequel with Jamie killing people, but the implication that happens. And then, you know, maybe Halloween 5, we just get away from these characters and we start anew. You know, the Halloween series,
exactly,
no stranger to reboots, so we could have done that.
Halloween 4 could have ended the series. That would have been kind of a perfect ending. You're wrapping it up.
Don't say perfect.
Well, you're right. Not perfect.
Don't you dare say perfect.
Listen, but the ending is a new beginning, right? And it's just you're just stuck in this cycle, which is kind of neat, you know.
Instead, we're stuck in another cycle of just Halloween movie after Halloween movie.
Yeah, doing the exact same thing over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
With Terminator Mike Myers,
who's got some fresh ink this time around.
Does he?
Yeah, he's got the thorn tattoo on his wrist. That is a new addition.
I didn't even know this.
Elaborated. There's like a close-up of it. What the hell?
Was there? I thought it was movie? I did watch this movie. Yeah, like a week ago.
And there's another character who has the same tattoo or something. So yeah, they're clearly doing that. And so we'll talk about this, obviously, with the thorn, with the man in black.
Johnny Cash?
Was written... Oh. Yes, exactly. Johnny Cash. This was written into the movie to be like a setup for Halloween 6, but I've read also that all the stuff was included and they didn't actually know what it meant yet. And they really just said, like, Halloween 6, you guys figure it out. That might have something to do with why we waited another 6 years for Halloween 6.
Oh, good.
I mean, Oh, what's there to say about Halloween 5? I guess we have to say something.
Well, you know what? For Halloween 5, all I can say is that it feels like even more of a departure somehow than Halloween 3 in my eyes, because this movie it just feels so rehashed that you're like, is this a fucking joke? You know? And then you have this little actress who's actually pretty good in Halloween 4.
Yeah, Danielle Harris continues to be really good in this role.
Yeah, but she's mute for 3/4 of the movie.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like a joke.
Listen, we can't discuss this movie being a joke without mentioning the cops. Those two bumbling cops. Did you catch the music that they when we first meet
walked
them?
out to, and it was like, bam,
yeah,
bam,
what the
bam,
hell is
bam,
that?
Yeah,
Is this Pee-wee's Playhouse? What is this?
No. And then like every character is just kind of cookie cutter character, you know, where my friend is missing. That's okay. I'm just gonna hang out with my other friends.
Oh yeah, no one gives a shit about anyone in this movie. That's actually amazing.
Well, there's even like a bit that, you know, we'll get to eventually, but a character that we meet is killed like directly outside of a convenience store, and he's supposed to be meeting or driving his friends to a party, his friends and girlfriends, and this character is murdered, and nobody gives a shit. They somehow make it to the party without him.
To be fair, we met that character. Would you give a shit
absolutely
if
not.
that was your friend and he got? Yeah, I'd be happy he's gone. That guy's an asshole.
Yeah, it's almost like the characters, they only exist just to give like the false, you know, just to put up this facade of actually having a story.
I actually think that this movie does something kind of interesting with one of its characters, and it's a character that I kind of hate, but that's eventually why it becomes interesting, and that's the character of Tina, who we'll meet in just a bit here, if we're going to continue with the plot, I suppose. So
yeah, I guess we must.
Jamie, she's freaking out. She's having like a seizure. The doctors are going to operate on her, do something, and then Dr. Loomis interrupts them. And there's that, they're like, oh, do you want her to die or something? And he's like, she'll stabilize. And then she does, but how did he know that? So you had Donald Loomis. Donald Pleasance, his first scene, he almost kills a kid. He almost kills a kid later on in the film in an even better scene. But so the next day, Jamie is visited by Rachel, her foster sister, and Rachel's friend Tina, who is one of the most annoying people I've seen in a film. I mean, and here's where I think it's interesting, because I think she's like annoying and loud and silly, and in any other movie we are introduced to this character and it's like, oh, they'll be the first to die, right? Or maybe not the first to die, but they'll die. They're cannon fodder. They're knife fodder. She actually becomes a hero. She still dies, but she becomes like heroic, and that's not something you usually do with this character, which is why I think it's really interesting. It doesn't completely work for me because I still hate the character.
Oh god, yeah,
but at least
she's terrible. But it's also interesting that, you know, out of all the characters that we're introduced to, the first one, Rachel, she's the one who seems intelligent and like level-headed and kind of normal. The rest are all fucking idiots. They're all goofy and stupid and
well, here's the thing,
just
though,
ridiculous in every way.
And this is the problem you have to any teen slasher movie where you carry over one character. All their friends were killed. You got to create them new. You got to make them new friends, right? You know, and it's like, okay, maybe these guys. There's a reason these people weren't around in Halloween 4. She didn't like them that much, but now half the town has been killed, and she has to be friends with these people.
Yeah, I don't have the smart friend. I don't have the nerdy friend anymore. I don't have the, you know.
It's a bit confusing, but I think Rachel is in college now.
Yeah. Maybe?
Because I'm assuming Tina's like probably like a roommate or like a college friend of some sort. Maybe she's not. It's just the house that she goes to is clearly not the same house from Halloween 4, but maybe that's just a movie thing. You know, the house wasn't available. They couldn't shoot at it. Mm-hmm. The homemakers burned it down after they saw Halloween 4 and were just outraged at it. But it's obviously a different house, but it looked a little like...
It reminded me of university housing in the city that I live in.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought too. I mean, it was too nice. The lawn is too well kept. Like that's the thing about the university housing. The lawns always look like shit because college students don't care about that stuff. But.
Yeah.
So Tina, as we said, is annoying. She also brings the dog. The dog is, what was the name, Max?
Yeah, Max.
A Doberman, I believe. Doberman Pinscher. Mm-hmm. So Rachel is planning on going out of town. Is she going out of town to visit her parents or just do something else? I'm not really sure.
I thought...
Because the parents are out of town.
Yeah, I'm confused. I didn't know that Rachel was going out of town. I thought she was waiting for her friends to show up from out of town to go to this party or something.
No, she is going to something else. I think they mention a cabin. I think Donald Loomis mentions the cabin, but
Loomis.
But yeah, I did it again. Shoot, Donald.
That's a great name though.
At any rate, what a dick move by Rachel to be like, oh yeah, my sister, she needs me. It's a year removed from the most traumatic events of her life. I'm just gonna go out of town. She can,
yeah,
that creepy Dr. Loomis can take care of her. I trust him with my 9-year-old sister.
Yeah, and then she's like, hey, I'm going to be out of town, but hey, Tina, do you want to check in on Jamie for me? That would be great, thanks.
And Tina's into it. Tina wants to actually check on her, but then Tina's boyfriend is being a dick about that. But yeah, so everyone's just an asshole. Like, Tina's annoying, but you at least get the sense that she's, maybe a decent person.
Yeah. I mean, her taste in men is apparently shit, but...
Yes, and that's we're going to talk about that when we meet. This is a bold move, by the way, for a movie, a sequel in a series that has a consistent killer identified by a name. Yeah. To also introduce a character with that same name. That's just like a weird move, and it's not like...
It is, but I guess I guess they had the story written. Right, and they were like, "Oh, well."
No, they didn't. Not until they were shooting. I don't think. I don't know.
Well, they were probably like, "Wouldn't it be great if this guy's name was Michael too?"
Yeah, I mean, it leads to a mildly fun scene where she's calling him Michael, but she thinks it's the other Michael.
Yeah, it's fun for us, not for her.
So Rachel is having second thoughts of going out of town. She might want to stay back and take care of Jamie, and that is kind of on her mind as she returns home. She takes a shower. Max is perpetually barking at something, and then over at the clinic, Jamie has a little episode, a freak out. So I guess earlier, because she has visions of Michael. There's like a telepathic link of some sort, which is never really explained, which is fine. But she saw Michael wake up and kill the hermit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now she is worried that Max is in trouble. And of course, Max, since returning to the home, has just done nothing but barked. Also, this is confusing because whose dog is Max? Tina brings Max to the clinic. You'd assume it's Tina's dog. Oh, apparently it's Rachel's dog, though, which makes it also Jamie's dog, maybe?
Yeah,
it's weird.
Or maybe her parents' dog?
Or maybe not, because maybe she's in college and she just has Doberman. I don't know. Again, just having the parents not be around here is leads to more questions than answers, I think. So Dr. Loomis frantically calls up Rachel, who gets out of the shower, answers the phone, and they have her check on Max. She realizes that Max is gone, and so they think obviously something is going on, and so they tell her to go to the nearest store and just stay there until the police arrive, which she doesn't do. She goes to her neighbors.
Yeah, which is a pretty weird thing to say. Go to the nearest store and hang out. Why don't we just send the police to your house immediately?
Well, they're on their way, but it might take a minute or two. Yeah, I don't know. This is why a store? But yeah, I don't know. And did they know she's not fully clothed? Did she say she was in the shower? I don't know.
I don't remember. But also, isn't it funny that Haddonfield, if police are trying to get across the small sleepy town of Haddonfield, it feels like they're trying to drive across all of New York. But if Michael Myers is getting across Haddonfield, it's the smallest country town you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah, and that's just how it is with slasher movies. I'm afraid there's an inconsistent geography, and that's fine. But no, you're definitely right. Anyways, so the cops arrive. These are the bumbling, goofy cops.
All clear. Nothing above, nothing below.
Who I think I heard the director. Who's the director, by the way? It's like some guy, some Swiss guy.
Oh, that explains it.
Does it? I feel like the Swiss are usually smart. Dominique Othenen-Girard, who was nominated for a Golden Bear Award, which is the best picture at the Berlin International Film Festival.
What?
Not for this movie, believe it or not. No.
Yeah.
I think I had heard, whether it was him or the writers, who I guess he is one of the writers credited, I think there was something about they wanted to make these cops like the Last House on the Left cops. They wanted to do like a thing like that, which, you know, Last House on the Left, the Wes Craven, Sean S. Cunningham movie, is a really weird movie. Jim, I don't know if you've ever seen it.
No,
but
I haven't.
It's like 3/4, maybe 2/3, incredibly disturbing horror movie about a bunch of psychopaths that rapes and kills a couple people, and then the parents find out about it, and then it's like a revenge thing. All that stuff's like incredibly disturbing, really, really well done. It's Wes Craven's first movie, I believe. So that's like 2/3 or 3/4 of it, and then the rest is bumbling cops just kind of going about their day, just being absolutely useless, and never quite intersecting with the story. But it always feels like maybe they will. I think they do at the very, very end. So that movie, it's not a great movie. It's a decent movie. But if you take away the cops, that's a great movie. But the cops are there, so it's like it's an okay movie because the cops are that bad. And I don't know if that was a case of Wes Craven was trying to make like a dark comedy that maybe didn't quite fully work, or if it was more of a concession like, I am making the most disturbing movie ever. We kind of need to just have comic relief in there. Either way, I think it's a misguided notion to include those cops here. So why are we borrowing the worst thing ever from a pretty good horror movie to be in this movie, I guess is the question, in Halloween 5.
Just the way they're introduced. It's almost like a Monty Python bit or something. Or no, not even
They like
Monty
complete
Python,
each other's sentences almost.
Yeah. They're introduced with like this goofy kind of clown music, and you hear like honks and like thunk.
Yeah, they all slide whistles, and it's just like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
is this?
I know. So the last time I saw this movie was years ago. This might be. I think I saw the first 5.
I can't wait till I can say that.
Well, I think I saw the first 5 Halloween movies whenever, and then I missed a few, and then I've kind of seen the rest or bits and pieces of the rest. I had forgotten about these characters, and when they came on screen, I actually had to rewind, and I was like, wait a minute.
Was I imagining that music? Like,
I know.
Yeah. They're not a huge part of the story. They're not just in this one scene, though. They're bigger than that, but I have so many questions.
Well, and
mainly why.
And they never have that kind of like little musical number introduce them again for the rest of the movie.
Well, I guess that's for the best.
Yeah.
Yes. So they find Max he comes on back home, so Max he just ran off for a bit. So the house is clear. There's no one in the house, so Rachel goes back in, but then, of course, she is killed by Michael Myers. So Rachel was kind of she and Danielle Harris were kind of both final girls in Halloween 4, and then we kill her off early in this movie, which is not an uncommon thing. Think of Friday the 13th Part 2. We kill off the final girl from the first one in the opening scene of that movie, but, like, I think the intention is, like, oh, this is going to be shocking. This is we like this character. If we kill her, that means anything can happen. Anyone can die. But it's like, if you'd never seen a horror movie, maybe, or a sequel, I should say, to a horror movie, it's like, yeah, this might shock you. But like, aren't you kind of expecting this the entire time?
If this is the first horror movie you've seen, then yes, it would be shocking.
Yeah, exactly. So Loomis goes to the sheriff. We get a returning sheriff from Halloween 4, who's got a dead daughter, and he's like, okay, Michael Myers is coming back, and the guy's like, no, he's not. And he's like, there's a good and bad to this scene, because this scene gives Loomis his probably best dialogue since the original film, because he says something like, I prayed to God that he would be sent to hell, but I knew in my heart that hell would not take him. And so something is like, ooh, that is awesome. That is classic Dr. Loomis. But then he also says something like, he's like, my memory goes back 12 years. And it's like, which I think is supposed to be like 12 years ago in the first Halloween, even though, it's the 11 years, whatever. This movie came out sooner than they thought it would, I guess. I don't know. But that also contradicts everything. Loomis's entire thing is that when he first met the kid when he was like 6 years old, he knew right away he was evil.
Yes,
he wasn't just evil the time he broke out and killed people. He was always evil. So it's like that's kind of that's a little inconsistent with the character. But yeah, so then the sheriff gets called into the cemetery because Michael Myers apparently has dug up the grave of a 9-year-old kid. At this point, we don't know it's a 9-year-old kid, but later on, Loomis tells Jamie that there's a 9-year-old. But there's a scene with at some point with Jamie where she thinks Michael is entering her clinic, and so she runs into the basement and like hides, but then she gets found by like a orderly and a maintenance guy and like an orderly, and they're like, hey, it's time for the Halloween costume pageant. Someone got her a princess costume, which, well, I guess, it's wise not to do the clown because that's what she almost killed her mother in, so they're getting her a nice little princess costume. We also catch back up with Tina goes over to Rachel's house to meet up with Rachel, but Rachel's already gone, so she figures like, oh, okay, she has gone out of town. She wasn't sure if maybe she would stay in town with Jamie, but then she tells her friend, is her friend Sam, the hot blonde chick?
Yeah, Sam.
Yeah. She tells Sam, like, oh, it looks like we've got the house all to ourselves. Yeah, so she and Sam, Tina and Sam, meet up with their boyfriends, Michael, who we mentioned, who's the big asshole greaser guy. He's in trouble with the cops a lot. You get the sense of that. He's got a real nice car. He hates when people touch it. And then Sam's boyfriend, both these women have awful taste in men.
Yeah.
Tina because he's an asshole. Sam because he looks like he's like 45 years old. He's got like very unfortunate hair. Like he's got like Niles Crane hair.
And a dollop of creme fraiche. Excuse me, Fraser. No, Niles. I'm telling Vicky my recipe for crepe gâteau.
Oh, well, I'm sure she's had enough of your crepe by now.
Yeah, and do you remember his name?
Spitz.
Yeah, Spitz, dude.
I don't remember it coming up until the scene in the barn, but yeah his name is Spitz. Let's hope that's a last name or a nickname. Named after the Olympic swimmer. I don't really see these four people hanging out together. Like, Sam is way too hot for Spitz. And then, I hate to say it, but especially because, there are any number of reasons for this to happen. There are abusive boyfriends, things like that. And sometimes it can be difficult to leave those people for a variety of reasons. But Tina dating this guy, Michael, just makes her look so, irredeemably dumb.
Yeah,
and I feel
absolutely.
bad.
Abso-friggin-lutely.
But yeah, so there's going to be a party at the Tower Farm. They're going to pick up some cases of beer from the drugstore that Spitz works at. And after Michael picks up the beer, he gets killed by Michael, the other Michael, in the alley. Which is kind of a fun scene, how he just, we've established he really cares about his car, and then Michael just comes up with, a garden claw or whatever and just scratches the paint.
Yeah.
And then I like how Mike, we'll call him Mike, is so dumb that he, gets out of the car, is like, that's it, asshole. And he, goes up to him, and then there's, a shot from, Michael Myers' shoulder, and it's revealed that this guy's... Yeah, exactly. This Mike guy's, a foot shorter than him, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna take this guy. And then, obviously it doesn't go well.
I love this scene so much, first off, because, we see him back his car up behind the store, and then it immediately becomes nighttime.
No, it's not night when he's killed. It's still daytime.
No, it's nighttime when he's killed.
I don't think you're right.
Oh, I think I'm right. Go back and watch. But anyways, look, listen. It's our first disagreement of the season, but let's both agree to disagree. But my favorite part about this scene, other than
let's have a second disagreement of the season. I don't agree to disagree. I think you're wrong.
Well, you're wrong, but that's okay. So I love when he's acting all tough and he's about to hit Michael Myers with a bat or something, and Michael Myers just full on stops him with his hand to his throat. It's
and then eventually it's the garden claw to the forehead,
which is great.
Yeah, it's definitely I just pulled up a picture on Google of the claw to the forehead. It seems to be day.
Listen, we'll talk about this after the podcast.
Okay, but yeah. Anyways. It is October, and in the northern United States, it can get dark quick. Not as quick as you think it does, but... So, what's Tina dressed as? I don't think I have that in my notes. What's her Halloween costume?
Tina's like a...
Is she like a pirate? No, it's the boy that's a pirate.
She has like a masquerade mask and like a vampire-y cloak. She's just supposed to be random ghoul, I guess.
Okay.
Random sexy ghoul.
Which I guess Mike had a like a Rondo Hatton mask or something that Michael Myers eventually puts on, I guess, to amuse himself. I don't know why he puts that on, but he does, and it's kind of the best. But so Tina gets picked up by Mike, or who she thinks is Mike, but it's actually Michael Myers. And of course, we have established since the first one that Michael Myers knows how to drive a car. So that should be the last of your complaints about this scene. But he picks her up. He's not talking, obviously, because he's Michael Myers. And she thinks he's given her the silent treatment because, oh, what did I do wrong this time? And then she's like, hey, let's go stop and see Jamie before we go to the party. And no response. And then she's like, hey, let's go over to this drugstore or this gas station. I need to buy cigarettes. And then she's like, come on, I need to buy a pack of cigarettes. So he slams on the brakes. She gets out. And then meanwhile, over at this costume pageant, Jamie has another vision. And she kind of has like one of those seizures. She collapses. Loomis and some adults, as well as that one boy, are huddled around her trying to help her. I love how the boy is like, it's like actively like part of this. They don't say, hey, fuck off, kid. Let the adults handle this.
At first I thought she was going to fall over the railing, and I was like, oh, this is going to be great.
Yeah, that would have been like Halloween Ends. The opening scene of Halloween Ends a little bit. And this is the first real time that Jamie's talked all movie. She's able to say a few words, and they're able to figure out that Tina's in trouble, and she says store. And then they're like, what store? What do they sell there? And then because the store itself has a big, like, it's almost like one of those, like, big, like, wall advertisements you'd see in, like, the 50s and earlier, but it's on the gas station. It's like a big woman with cookie tits, basically, right? And I don't know, it's some cookie company, and I don't know what it's called, but she's just like, big woman. And then Dr. was like, oh, big woman, what? Does the big woman work at the store? What do they sell there? This scene is so funny to me, especially because when they find out, she says cookie woman, and then Dr. Loomis's delivery of the line cookie woman like had me in tears. I don't know what it is, but he's just like,
Cookie woman.
Cookie woman.
It's just very amusing to me. And then the cops that are there, I guess, are able to figure out what gas station they're referring to. So the cops go pick up Tina. Michael Myers drives away, and then they bring Tina to the clinic to visit Jamie. Jamie says Tina's name in this very emotional scene, and then Tina's like, oh, this is great. This is so wonderful. You can say my name now. No, I'm just going to go to the party and get laid, kid. You know, this is nice knowing you. And this is so frustrating. This scene is so, again, going back to Tina is so annoying, but also like, why? Like, this poor little girl is in distress, and her sister is apparently out of town. I mean, in reality, she's dead. Do you really have to go to this Halloween party? I mean, come on.
No, the answer is no.
Loomis tells her, be sensible, Tina, and then she like laughs and says, I'm never sensible if I can help it, which is always struck me as like an Oscar Wilde line. I don't know why that is, but I always remember that line.
Yeah, well, first off, it's a good line, but it's also like, oh, okay, so you're going out to a Halloween party in this town where for like the last 10 odd years a serial killer has killed multiple people in this town.
Yeah, she even has the line earlier in the film. She says this to Sam. She says they should ban Halloween in this town, which, spoilers, they do in Halloween 6, or between now and Halloween 6, I suppose. So frustrating. She's all set to go to the Tower Farm. She ends up getting a ride by the two bumbling cops who Loomis tells to follow her. And then the little boy. So Billy overhears where she's going, and at this point Tina has escaped from the clinic and she's going to look for Jamie, but she doesn't know where she is, but Billy does. So at the farm, immediately, well, first of all, oh my god, this is frustrating. Okay. You're having a Halloween party at a farm. How are you not outside with like a bonfire or something? How are you just in the house?
Yeah, they're in some random person's house.
That is so lame. That is so stupid. Why you just have it at any house? Just have it at a house. If you're not going to use the farm, which I guess they go skinny dipping later, but what the fuck? It's like 35 degrees outside.
I know. Well, also, Also, there's no, like, pumpkins or anything. Like, nothing looks everybody's in costumes.
Yeah, they're in the costumes. That's kind of it, yeah. Pretty much immediately when Tina gets this party, they decide to pull a prank on these bumbling cops, and she and Sam run out of the house screaming, being chased by a guy in a Michael Myers costume. It turns out to just be Spitz, and the cops pull the guns on him and everything. And then when they realize it's just a prank, they're like, oh, you guys could easily be dead by now, but fortunately for you, we're lousy cops or something like, oh,
yeah,
boy.
But
yes, there should be a rim shot, and that's it. It's no more goofy than the music that played when they first arrived.
I know. Well, they've also got like those kind of like goofy, like, I mean, this might just be me, but it sounds like they have those goofy kind of like New York cop voices. Oh, you're lucky we're bad cops, and you're like almost like a
Rodney
Rodney
Dangerfield play one of the cops. I don't remember them sounding like that.
I tell you, my wife and I, we only smoke after sex. I've been working on the same pack for 3 years. My wife goes through 3 packs a day. I get no respect, eh?
Yeah, oh God. Again, going back to, is Tina remotely likable? She's dating a complete asshole, and the first opportunity she has, she plays this life or death prank on the cops that could have gotten Spitz killed, which would be for the best of everybody. But, I mean, like, how can you like Tina at this point?
I think out of those three characters that are left, Tina's definitely my favorite. I thought Sam was, but then I realized, she's just an idiot too.
She's just hot. That's
yeah,
all she has going
yeah.
for her. And Spitz, I mean.
Well, when he was first introduced, he was...
Spitz looks like he belongs on a watch list. He's got like a pedophile look about him. I don't know.
Dude, if he just had a pair of like aviator eyeglasses, he'd look like fucking, what's his name? Dahmer? Dahmer.
A little bit, yeah, maybe. So they all go into the barn. They find cats, little kittens. I don't know what the fuck they're doing. I mean, I know it's a farm. There could be cats here, but...
Oh, well, don't worry. They're just barn cats.
Yeah, they're kittens. They're like tiny. These are like brand new cats. You could throw them a very long way if you wanted to, which I do.
Brand new cats.
That's what kittens are.
They're brand new cats. I like that.
Yeah, so they all get distracted. They go in this barn. There's some more lame Michael Myers prank stuff with Spitz, which... Literally, we had just seen it like 90 seconds ago. Why are you doing this again? Because he like pretends to stab Sam with like a pitchfork or something.
Yeah,
it's like, we just did this scene. Why are we doing this again?
They do it like 4 times in this.
Yeah, it's just
in this barn.
It's too much. Well, there's a few false scares, I think, with like a cat falling on someone, and we get better cat scares in our next film. Don't worry. I'm actually not sure we do, but they're more enjoyable cat sequences, I'll say. But yeah, so eventually Tina takes off because Sam and Spitz are about to have sex, and we're about to find out if he spits or swallows. But before we can find that out, he gets stabbed with a pitchfork. They do the Friday the 13th Part 2 thing, except he doesn't stab them both at the same time, and Sam gets up, runs around a bit. She's covered in blood. She looks like Carrie.
Yeah.
And then she gets a, what do you call that, a scythe? Haysicle?
Yeah. A scythe, yeah.
She gets that swiped across her, and then we just get like a little tiny splash of blood on the hay, which is really lame. It's
yeah,
like,
this movie has
if you're going to like cut away from a kill and show blood like hit the ground or the wall or whatever, give us a decent amount of blood at least. Because this, I'm by and large, I'm not complaining too much about like the kills, the effects in the movie, but like this one specifically feels like they cheaped out, or maybe it's censorship, the MPAA, who knows? But
yeah,
you just wanted more from this scene, because I don't think the pitchfork through Spitz is bad. That's pretty good.
No, and in that scene he does in fact spit.
I mean, it's the Prowler. The Prowler is the all-time best pitchfork kill.
It really is, yeah.
Because that's like incredible. Like they might have actually killed that actress in that scene. At this point, everyone at the party has decided to go out skinny dipping, which again, October 31st, rural Illinois. You can go as far south as Illinois goes. It's not warm enough to go skinny dipping. I don't know.
There's ice on the river.
We never even see the body of water that it is. Is it like a disgusting pond? Is it a lake? Is it a river? I don't know, but if it's not a hot tub, you're not doing it. And, but Tina's like, oh, I can't go skinny dipping, I need to, or I at least need to let Spitz and Sam know where I am. And so she goes back into the barn, finds them dead, and then runs to go get the cops, but they are dead as well. And so she gets chased by Michael Myers, who is in a car, chasing her. Driving about 6 miles an hour. And then this is right when Jamie and Billy arrive at the farm, and then Michael starts kind of chasing after them, and they kind of split up, and he almost runs over Billy. They do like a cutaway where, like, in like a low budget movie, that kind of cutaway could have maybe been there to indicate that yes, he was run over, but we're not actually going to show a dummy. That's not the case here, I guess.
Yeah, but it's also funny because then the next time we see Billy, Tina's like cradling him. She's like, "It's okay, Billy, you're okay," but he definitely looks dead. You know what I mean?
He's fine. Yeah, so the car chases Jamie through, like, is that a little Christmas tree farm area? That's what it looks like. Like all these like small Christmas trees.
Yeah, that's what it looked. That is what it looked like. Yeah.
Visually, this scene's like decent, but it is like frustrating. Like, Michael, what are you doing? Just run her over. What are you doing?
Or, just get out of the car and run up to her because you're at like a.
Well, he doesn't run. He doesn't run. We get that, but does he have to drive slow? Does he have to drive at walking speed? I don't understand this.
But we get the best stunt in the movie here, I think, where he fucking rams his car into a tree and the whole car explodes.
And this is actually really neat. How when the car crashes, like there's the horn is just going off, presumably because Michael's head or chest is resting on the steering wheel, and Tina is making sure Billy is okay, and Jamie and everyone seems to be okay. They're like terrified and they're injured, but they're otherwise okay. And then the horn stops. That's actually really neat. I like how they do that.
It is, yeah. Like it's a great little detail, and it's
yeah, it's one of the better moments of the movie. I think it like raises, because you're watching this movie, you don't actually think Michael Myers is dead, but just the realization for them that, oh no, he's moving.
Well, and also too, I mean, this is the first time in the movie that he's felt scary. Where when he climbs out of a burning car, and you're like, wow, dude, this guy's awesome. He's terrifying. Every other time he's been like hiding in a closet. Like just stuff like that.
Who does he think he is? Barry Manilow?
Yeah, or he's just been like walking around. He hasn't been doing anything. This is the first time where he does something really cool.
Michael goes to kill the little kids, but then Tina gets in the way, and then she gets killed. And so Tina, this character who I've hated the entire time, is like all of a sudden, oh my god, she's like a heroic character. She still dies, but they made the obnoxious friend who you'd think would be the first or second to die. They made her like a hero. I think that's neat. It kind of works. It kind of doesn't, but
yeah, it's kind of character redemption, just like Boromir in Lord of the Rings. She pulls the Boromir of this movie.
Yeah, except she never
tried to kill Jamie.
Boromir almost betrays people. It's different. It's a little different. This would be like if Jar Jar saved Obi-Wan's life because he's the annoying one, and then he gets killed like in a self-sacrifice, and it's like, oh, that's I think that's the better comparison. But anyways, so. Then all of a sudden Dr. Loomis shows up and he takes the kids, and the cops show up, and Loomis doesn't he tell the cops that he killed Michael Myers or something? I can't remember. He says something like that. No,
they show up to the house, right? Oh no, sorry, that's before. Yeah, when they show up to the field, he's like,
he yells to Michael, who's off in the distance somewhere. He yells like, I'll meet you at home, and I'll have the little girl with me or something.
That's where it will end.
Yeah.
And then he goes over to Jamie and he's like, do you believe me now? Will you help me find him now?
There's that, because he's been he's basically interrogated Jamie throughout the movie. He's like, we both know he's alive, but you know where he is. And he's like shaking her around.
And she's a fucking mute, and she's like,
I know, it's great. This is wonderful, crazy Donald Pleasance stuff. And so they have this trap set up at the Michael Myers house, which fortunately still has functioning electricity somehow, despite being condemned for 40 years.
Yeah, and also it's a completely different house, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's probably true. I don't care too much about that, despite my earlier nitpick about the Rachel's house looking completely different, I guess. Maybe I should be consistent. So they have this thing set up, a bunch of cops all over the place. Loomis is in the house doing something, and then up in, I think it's supposed to be Michael's sister's bedroom, Judith's bedroom where he first killed. Mm-hmm. We have Jamie sitting at the vanity, and then the other cop, who's the guy from Ace Ventura, the guy who gets thrown out the window in, you don't see him get thrown out the window, but he's Roger Podacter is his name. I just remember that.
Okay.
Roger Podacter is, that's not the actor, that's the name in Ace Ventura. He's like the guy who hires Ace. He and Courtney Cox are the two that hire Ace Ventura. Because he became highly recommended from one Martha Metz.
Oh yeah, the bitch. What?
Then they find out. How did they find out that Michael is someplace else? What did they get, like, a call from somebody?
Yeah, well, no, they're trying to contact the police station from the house, and they're not getting through to anybody. And they're like, there's a bunch of guys stationed there. How come we can't get a hold of them? And they're like, maybe something's happened to them. And then fucking Donald Loomis, I'm going to call him that from now on, Donald Loomis goes...
No, that's just going to continue to throw me off.
Okay, to Donald
Maybe
Pleasance.
I'll start getting it right now that you get it wrong intentionally, so I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, Donald Loomis goes, Michael must be there. I'll stay here with the girl. You go find him.
And in reality, this is like his secret plan. He knew it would happen this way, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess it wasn't the police station. It was somewhere else that they had a bunch of guys stationed, right?
Oh, at the clinic.
That was it, the clinic.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, because then they told the one cop that stayed behind and Mr. Loomis to take Jamie to the...
I love the scene with the guy who's in the car. He's like, he gets rear-ended by Michael, and then he's like on the radio with the guy from Ace Ventura, and they're asking him like, "Hey, are you okay?" And then you hear him like, all this like struggling, and they're like, "Are you okay? What's wrong?" And it's like, can't you figure it out, buddy?
Well, dude, he starts out like, I think he's here.
Yeah. It's like, who's here? Who is it? It's like,
who could it possibly be on Halloween night?
Oh, I don't know if they literally ask who's there, but it's very clearly like I don't know. But anyways, so Michael gets into the house. He has a fight with Dr. Loomis. He eventually throws him like over the balcony
into like a living room.
Yeah, and we do see he hits the ground hard, but we do see that he's still alive. But then the cop is trying to set up like a pulley system of ropes to lower them down and out of the house. And of course he ends up getting hanged by that, which is pretty awesome because Michael just gets in and just throws the rope around his neck and just throws him out the window, which is awesome. And then Jamie, I guess, runs to the attic. And this is where... Well, I guess there's a casket here. There's no 9-year-old girl or 9-year-old kid, I don't think. But I assume this is the casket from the cemetery. But we also see... This is... Rachel's body's up there.
Mm-hmm. And Max.
Is Max there, too?
Yeah, he's hanging from his collar.
Okay, I don't think I caught that, and it does not come as a surprise because Michael kills a dog in more movies than he doesn't. But I actually didn't think he killed one in this one. Okay, so Jamie goes in the coffin, and then when Michael's about to like stab her or something, she calls him Uncle, which gets him to momentarily pause, and she gets him to like take off his mask for a second.
She wants to see his eyes, so she kind of motions. She's like, I want to see your face.
Yeah, and there's like a tear.
Yeah, and he takes his mask off and then immediately freaks out.
Yeah. And then so the chase ensues all throughout the house, including the dumbwaiter, or what is that? Is that a laundry chute? Laundry chute, right?
Yeah, I think that's what it was. And it's like a 20-minute portion of this chase of them in this laundry chute.
Yeah, where he's stabbing through the laundry chute when she's at the bottom. She's trying to get back up to the top.
And it's funny, that was kind of like what's what I'm looking for? We saw that laundry chute before. Loomis locked it.
Yes, he did. So she eventually gets out of there, and Loomis is back to the rescue, kind of. At first he dangles her as bait, and he's like, "Here, Michael, come get the little girl." It's like, what the fuck are we doing here? This is wonderful.
So great.
And then when Michael comes to attack, they drop like a big chain on him.
It's like a chain net.
And then Loomis starts hitting him with the 2x4, which is inherently funny when a 75-year-old man is wailing on a 7-foot-tall.
Well, the best part about that is he's shooting
man.
With like tranquilizers, right?
Oh yeah, there's a tranquilizer gun.
And then Michael just reaches and grabs the gun out of his hands, and he rips a 2x4 off the window and just starts beating Michael, and he's like yelling, "Die, die!"
Yep.
Awesome.
And then there's a really weird shot. Where when Michael finally drops to the ground, then Loomis falls too, I guess out of like exhaustion, but he falls on top of him, and it almost looks like they're going to kiss.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And then so Michael is finally arrested. He's taken into the jail. There's a hilarious shot where they reveal that he's in the jail and he still has the Michael Myers mask on. It's so funny. And they're like, the sheriff's like, he'll rot in there until the day he dies or something. And there's a really great response from Jamie. She's like, he'll never die. And then 10 seconds later, the Man in Black shows up. So the Man in Black, a little setup. We saw him get off the bus. We had seen mostly like shots from like the knee down. He's got boots. We do see there's that thorn tattoo, which apparently you didn't see. He also kicks a dog or steps on a dog or something. Like this guy, whoever he is, he's an asshole. We know that. So he shows up, shoots up the police station, and then blows up the cell. And I guess he and Michael escape.
Yeah.
And Jamie goes back in and just is crying and screaming the word no. And that is how Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers ends. A film in which Michael Myers takes no revenge. Right?
Yeah, correct.
I guess he kills Rachel. Is that
I guess,
in like the first act? Is that his revenge? Because she hit him with the car once or twice? He's gone through worse than that. So anyways, that is the end of Halloween 5. Jim, your thoughts?
This movie felt like a joke, like a little jokey movie. I don't know. It didn't feel like a Halloween movie. It was just a rehash, as we've already said, of all the other Halloween movies combined.
Which makes it feel like a Halloween film because that's what most of them are.
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean
Halloween 3, and there are plenty of reasons to not like Halloween 3, but 12, 13 movies into the series, however many movies we are, aren't you so glad it does something different? Like, I'll even say that about Halloween Ends. I didn't really like Halloween Ends that much, but I'm so freaking glad they did something different. I mean, I didn't really care much for it, but it was finally something new.
Well, you know, it's funny that in this movie, they took a fantastic little actress and made her mute for 3/4 of the movie. And just made her have seizures.
Mute, but emotive still.
Yeah, but I think Donald...
She does more acting in this movie than Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween 2, who's just hopped up on painkillers and just wants to sleep, you know.
Yeah, but I think Mr. Donald
wearing a
Loomis
wig
does a better job, just because he's so much fun to watch on screen.
Yes, this is a wacky, crazy performance, overacting. You got to appreciate it. It's great. The this is my second favorite Dr. Loomis. This is you know, he's great in the first one just like as a character, and here he's a terrible character, which is why he's amazing. It's great. Like there's always been like a fan theory around that like maybe Michael wasn't actually crazy, he just had the world's worst psychiatrist who basically made him crazy. And this film lends that credence. It really does. Yeah,
I think
like if this is how Dr. Loomis was with like a 7-year-old Michael Myers, like, oh, I could kind of see it. Yeah.
Yeah, if he's hauling a 7-year-old Michael Myers around saying, take him. Yeah, you know, it's just a shame that this movie is pretty boring. Like, there's nothing super exciting that happens. Definitely the best kill, in my opinion, is the gardening claws, the gardening implement in the head there.
Yeah, that's good. I like the
cop
cop getting hanged.
Yeah.
I thought that was something different too.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, and that's
kind of neat.
I mean, like, for me, my favorite part of this movie was when Michael pretends to be Michael. And I don't know, I really like
Cookie
that.
Woman!
Cookie Woman.
That's my favorite part of the movie.
I love that
specifically
bit.
the Cookie Woman line delivery.
Yeah. But, like, that like, portion is so tense and also so much fun, and...
It's so stupid, too.
Well, yeah, exactly.
I mean, it is, yeah.
But everything else just is boring. And then all that, like, the kittens in the barn thing, that's like a 10... Like, it feels like a 30-minute scene, but I'm sure it's like a 10-minute scene. And
Yeah, I don't know what it is about that barn stuff. It feels like it should work a lot better because that's classic slasher setup.
That's what I thought, yeah.
And it just doesn't... I don't know how... It just falls flat, and I'm not really sure why.
It's almost like they had come up with scenarios, or like some death scenarios. So like, okay, yeah, well, we're going to have somebody stabbed in a barn by a pitchfork, and somebody else killed by some other kind of farming tool. But now how do we get there? Oh, well, what if somebody finds some kittens next to this party that's happening on a farm or somebody's bungalow, and they wander in there?
Or you could have the party outside at the farm, like any farm party would be, and then a couple people just wander into the barn.
Exactly.
They don't need to find kittens.
Exactly.
They don't need to play pranks on cops.
No,
they don't need to play pranks on each other 90 seconds after they played pranks on cops.
Yeah, and on top of that, like, for the most part, this movie was pretty lax on the gore. And even the deaths, like, there's so many that were off-screen.
They are, but I don't know how much of that is you blame the filmmakers for that, because I'll say, like, the team working on the effects, it's KNB, so that's Kurtzman, Robert Kurtzman, Howard Berger, and Greg Nicotero. They're, like, as skilled as anybody in the gore effects industry. But I would say just in general, you know, it ebbs and flows. But I would say in the late 80s, the MPAA cracked down on gore more than at other periods in time, because the late 80s Friday the 13th movies are a lot less violent than the early ones. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, which comes out in 1990, like, every bit of gore in that movie is, like, cut out, and it's just the lamest movie in the world because of that. So yeah, so that could be a factor. I don't know any specifics about if Halloween 5 had issues with that, but it would not surprise me at all.
Yeah. My biggest takeaway from this movie is that I don't think I like Michael Myers that much as a...
This is what I was saying.
As an evil villain.
This is the last time we talked about Michael Myers. You
I've really changed my tune.
As best villain in our Season 3 awards recap. Best villain for Halloween 4. And I said, Michael sucks. There's one movie in which he works, and I stand by that. I think he's a boring killer. And listen, as far as, like, boring killers who just do the same shit every movie go, he is not Jason. There's an artistry to Jason's kills. Michael just does whatever.
Yeah, well,
and then he drives in a car, and somehow that makes him less threatening when he's chasing after people in a car.
Yeah, I like the idea that he's so bad at chasing people in a car that he drives his car into a tree. He's like, fuck, dude.
He was drinking.
Yeah. He couldn't see out of that mask.
Also, so there was one thing earlier when he was wearing, like, the Rondo Hatton mask, which is Mikey's mask. There was a scene where he took it off. And I really, really was hoping the Michael Myers mask was on underneath it, but it wasn't.
Yeah, that's
he, like,
right,
pulled it up from, like, underneath the seat. But it would have been so funny if he just had that mask on underneath the other mask.
Missed opportunity. You'll put that stupid, goofy sound effects in with the cops, but you won't do that with Michael Myers? Come on.
Yeah.
Well, what did you think? What's your opinion? Same thing, same sort of thing?
Pretty much. I mean, it's a lame movie. There's a few little mild touches of it. These are all, like, small things, but there's a few mild touches where it's like, oh, I kind of appreciate that. There's a couple little moments with Rachel where you see Michael in the background in the house, and they don't do, like, a musical sting to, like, let you know that he's there. You just kind of have to be watching the screen and you'll see him.
Yeah.
There's a few moments like that are kind of nice and a bit more reminiscent of the first one than a lot of the sequels. And then most of the other stuff I like is the schlocky elements, like the Donald Pleasance performance. It's just we've done this so many times at this point. You need to give us something memorable. Even if it's not a big story shakeup, because the thing that they bring here is the telepathic link, which, whatever. But like I will always compare these to the Friday the 13th movies, but a lot of the weaker Friday the 13th movies, they'll at least give you memorable moments. If it's just like a kill that really stands out, or like a gore effect or something, or even if it's just something dumber, if it's Crispin Glover dancing.
Yeah.
Something just weird.
I think,
and this movie just doesn't really have a lot to offer there, other than the crazy Donald Pleasance performance, which is wonderful.
I think as this podcast goes on, I'm learning that I'm agreeing with you wholeheartedly about what you just said about the worst Friday the 13th being kind of better than the... definitely better than a lot of Halloween movies.
I just think they're more entertaining.
Yeah, they are.
I don't know what it is. It's a certain amount of it comes down to personal preference, obviously.
Yeah, but like, when you're watching like a horror movie, you don't want to be checking your phone while you're watching a movie. And like, I'm watching this for a podcast, and I'm like looking down at my phone. I'm like, Jesus Christ, what else is going on in the world of Facebook?
Oh, or X, formerly Twitter. Which you're not on, and you're still checking that over watching the movie.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
It's not good. It's not completely it's not unwatchable. It's not even the worst of the series. I think you'd agree it's the worst up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
This is not the worst in the series, but that's not to say it's really all that worth watching, honestly. Like I have this thing where I've talked about this, I've written about this for Grandma Sophia's Cookies blog, but certain series, you can get the full experience of the series, like all that's great that series has to offer by watching one movie in the series, or maybe two. The Halloween series, you can honestly just watch the first one. The rest, the other sequels do not add anything to it, well, except for Halloween 3, which is its own unique thing, and it's not really a sequel, but Halloween 2 doesn't add anything. It adds more than this. It comes closer to adding something than Halloween 5 does, but...
Yeah, I agree. Let's get into Inferno. Let's get incinerated. Inferno was released in 1980. I guess it's the third Dario Argento movie we've covered on this podcast. Though I believe this is...
Technically fourth.
Oh.
Because he has a writing credit on Once Upon a Time in the West. Like a story credit or something. But yes, the third work as a director.
Is this the first episode of an Argento movie that I've been in? Other than Once Upon a Time in the West, technically?
Yeah.
Well, I gotta tell you, this movie is technically a sequel to Suspiria. And I'll explain that in a second, because it really is technically a sequel.
It is, but it's in an interesting way where Suspiria exists as its own thing. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just about perfect as it. I think Suspiria is one of the 5-10 greatest horror movies ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Inferno is what makes it the part of a bigger story, and I think that's kind of interesting, where I don't think Inferno really functions without Suspiria, but Suspiria functions fine without Inferno, so I don't know. And they're kind of similar movies in ways. They have a similar visual.
Yeah, well, I didn't really know who Dario Argento was until 2018, when the remake of Suspiria came out.
The Suspiria remake, yeah.
Yeah, so I saw that in theaters. And then when I was like, oh, this is a remake, and then I went home and I watched the original, I was like, oh, this is a fantastic movie. I didn't know that there were two other movies that were related to this movie, one being Inferno, and then the other one being, oh shit, what is it?
Mother of Tears, which is relatively recently.
2007.
Like I had, yeah, and it's funny, okay, so if it's 2007, that must have come out before I actually saw Suspiria, but I think I think everyone kind of talks about Argento the same way. They just stopped talking about his movies after about the mid-90s because he just lost it, and I think some of it is how he uses effects and stuff. I mean, this happens to a lot of directors. When's the last time anyone gave a shit about a Francis Ford Coppola movie? He still makes movies, it's just no one sees them, and they're not any good. In that kind of... It's like the Scorseses and the Spielbergs are like the exceptions to the rule.
Yeah, and it's kind of a shame, because I think Argento has such an interesting style, and I think... If I'm not mistaken, wasn't it, didn't he get Mario Bava to help with some of the optical effects and stuff?
He died in 1980, so it's if he worked on Inferno, it's probably Mario Bava's last work.
Yeah, I just Googled it. It said Argento invited his mentor, Mario Bava, to provide some of the optical effects, matte paintings, and trick shots for the film.
Okay, so there is involvement.
Yeah, so this movie, going back to it being a quote-unquote sequel, Suspiria was such a box office hit for Argento that they immediately began to write a second movie. they were like, oh, Suspiria was just one movie in a trilogy called the Mothers Trilogy or the Sisters Trilogy?
The Three Mothers. I mean, I guess you'd call it the Mothers Trilogy because the third movie is called The Three Mothers. No, the third movie's called Mother of Tears, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so the Three Mothers, the Mothers Trilogy, whatever.
Yeah.
And I've still never seen the third one, by the way. I joked about how everyone stops paying attention to Argento films at a certain point. I'm one of those people. I think the last Argento movie that I saw came out in 96. It's the Stendhal Syndrome, and it's okay.
Huh. I think this movie kind of being born out of desperation, it kind of shows a bit. You know what I mean? Like, because when you move to this from Suspiria, you really go, oh, this is interesting and kind of boring and not nearly as exciting as Suspiria for it being set in the same universe and part of the same quote-unquote trilogy that spanned from, 1977 to 2007?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Inferno is listed as a Section 2 video nasty, a non-prosecuted film, which means it originally passed with cuts for the cinema. It was released in 1993 with 20 seconds cut. So this is in the same section of movies as The Evil Dead or The Toolbox Murders, which is terrible. Oh, The Beyond is in this section as well. The Beyond, probably the best Lucio Fulci movie. Contamination, one of the greatest alien ripoffs of all time. God, I've seen too many of these. Oh my God! Don't go in the house, don't go near the park, and don't look in the basement are all Section 2 non-prosecuted video nasties.
Also, you're an English man who also took Latin. I'm reading here all three films are partially derived from... Oh, I'm going to...
Thomas de Quincey.
Yeah.
Suspiria de Profundis. Which I know little to nothing about that. I as far as I know, Argento took the title of the Mater Suspiriorum, Mater Lacrimarum, Mater... What's the other one?
Good question. Which one did you
say? They all say...
Suspiriorum?
Suspiriorum, Lacrimarum. Oh, Tenebrarum, of course. Yeah. I think those names are mentioned in that book, and I think that's where it goes. I think it's mostly an Argento creation, but I can't confirm that. I can confirm that it's incredibly frustrating as someone who studied classical Latin to hear them pronounce the word mater, mother, as mater. It's a fucking Cars character voiced by Larry the Cable Guy. But, modern / ecclesiastical Latin, sure, that's probably how it's said.
Mater lacrimarum, mater suspiriorum.
Mater done!
Well, actually getting into this movie, I want to say one more thing. This movie joins the ranks of some of our other movies that we've covered on this podcast of filming the death of an animal on screen. And I don't know...
I believe you, but I need to be reminded. There's a shit ton of animals in this movie, but who actually
mostly
gets
cats.
Killed?
If there's a movie that's going to make you terrified of cats, it's this movie.
What animal actually gets killed?
It's a mouse, and there's footage of... So after Mark goes down into the crawl space area, a cat jumps in before him, and then it keeps cutting between this cat and Mark, and the cat is literally eating this live mouse.
Oh yeah, the cat eats him. Yeah, but that's fine because they didn't. They killed. It's not the filmmakers actively killing.
Well, unless they
it's not.
Gave
it's
the
not
cat
like
the
Friday
mouse.
the 13th. Well, it's possible they did that, but it's possible the cat would have found him anyways. You just sped things up. But it's different than all those cannibal movies where they're just actively, the actors are out there stabbing turtles and cutting up snakes and stuff like that. Italian movies were notorious for that. There's also in Deep Red, I don't remember if I really got into this with Josh, but there's a scene where the little girl drops a lizard that's been stabbed by a knitting needle or something, and it might be real. And if it is, that lizard is dead. Right. But I don't know. That also might not have been real. But you like to think of Argento. He's not. All these Italian horror movies are super violent, but he's not an exploitation director the way Fulci or Umberto Lenzi or all these other guys are. Ruggero Deodato, R.I.P. He just passed away recently. He's the director of the incredibly repulsive Cannibal Holocaust, of course. You'd like to think he's not out there killing animals, but maybe he is. I don't know.
Yeah, in his free time. Yeah. Okay, well, to get into this kind of boring movie, unless you have anything to say, anything else to say before we get into the plot
I have a
here?
lot to say, but let's get into the plot. Well, it'll come up. The plot's complicated, or is it? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I do not know what price I shall have to pay for breaking what we alchemists call silentium. The life experiences of our colleagues should warn us not to upset laymen by imposing our knowledge upon them.
So, right off the bat, we're introduced to Rose Elliott in New York. She is reading from this book called The Three Mothers, and it describes these three witches: Mater Suspiriorum, who's in Freiburg, Mater Lacrimarum. There's one, how do you pronounce her name again? Is it Tenebrarum?
Tenebrarum and Lacrimarum.
Yeah.
Which, it's Mater Suspiriorum, there's Suspiriorum is the mother of darkness, correct?
Let me double check here, because they keep on changing their names throughout the movie.
Lacrimarum is mother of tears.
Yeah. Suspiriorum is lady of sighs.
Excuse me. Tenebrarum is mother of darkness.
Yeah.
And then Suspiriorum is sighs. Okay. Argento also has a film called Tenebrae, or that's the Latin title. The Italian title is Tenebrae, but it comes from the Latin word for, I guess, darkness.
Oh.
And that's one of his better movies, actually. Doesn't tie into this trilogy, but it's awesome. And that's probably the next movie he made after this. John Saxon's in it. It's one of the best Giallo movies ever made, I think.
Well,
although it's a terrible mystery. It's two different mysteries in one, and both are terrible, but it's an awesome horror movie.
Well, back to this movie. This mystery begins when Rose gets to the part in this book where this alchemist who originally wrote this book, named Varelli.
Dr. Varelli, yeah.
He describes how he built these three houses for these three sisters, and I think he actually says they all rule the world from their respective houses or something. And he gives clues that you can search out to see if you're living in one of these three houses. And I think one of the clues is what do you say? There's like a picture of the house on the wall somewhere. There's a picture of the sister who runs that house in the cellar. And then for the third clue, you have to look at the soles of your shoes.
Yeah, it's like the key is under your feet or something.
So Rose suspects that she's living in the New York Sisters building because Varelli included an image, luckily for her, he included an image of the building he made in his book, and it matches the building pictured hanging in her apartment.
Alchemists, I don't know much about alchemy, but were they frequently designing modern apartment buildings?
No. Were there alchemists in the early 1900s? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, that seems more like a
medieval
died off in the 16th century kind of thing. Yeah, I don't know.
Alchemists died off when they realized that they couldn't make things into gold. That's what happened to alchemy. That was why alchemy existed, because they thought they could make things into gold. So Rose goes, "Oh my god, I think I'm living in one of these buildings. I have proof here in this book and on my wall." So she runs downstairs. She writes a letter to her brother first, who's in Rome, and his name's Mark. And she details what she's learned about the three mothers in this book. And she runs downstairs, mails the letter, and then she pops in to this little antique store called Kazarian Antiques to question this old man, Mr. Kazarian, about the book that he sold her. She's like, "Is it real?" He goes, "It's as real as you want it to be." Piece of shit. Thanks for the answer.
Well, what does he know? He just sells the book.
Well, yeah, I guess so, but he seems a little off,
Well, he looks like a guy in old age makeup a little bit, and maybe that's part of it.
Who hates cats.
Well, and I'm with him there. He's the most sympathetic character of the film.
So Rose goes, "Well, I'm going to go into the basement." She just hops on in. She's exploring. I don't know how, but she comes into this basement cellar room, and there's a hole in the floor, and it looks just like a puddle. And she drops her keys into this puddle. And when she reaches in to retrieve her keys, you actually realize that her keys are hanging on the chandelier of a totally submerged room.
Yeah, it's like a ballroom or something. This looks like the Titanic, just a completely submerged thing. This is so cool.
Oh yeah, it's a really cool set. And she hops in and is swimming around this room. She gets her keys back, and I don't even know how to describe it other than a sunken ballroom. But we, as the audience, see that there is a painting of Mater Tenet. What's her name again? I can't pronounce it. Tenebrarum on the wall. Unfortunately for Rose, she doesn't notice because a dead body floats into the room and frees her out. See, I thought it was several, but I think it's just one, and it just keeps on cutting back and forth. But you might be right.
I don't think so. It's changing direction an awful lot for it to just be one. I don't know.
Maybe
this is a supernatural film. Though.
Yeah, it's a spooky magic body. So she shoots out of the hole, and she just runs. She leaves her shoes, she leaves her lighter, and she just runs back into her apartment building. Well, Rose gets into the lobby. She's absolutely soaking wet. She's waiting for her elevator to come down so she can run back upstairs. But she hears the voice of a woman saying she's been snooping around, and then Rose kind of hides in like a side corridor. And then we immediately cut, and we're introduced to Rose's brother Mark in Rome, where he's attending university for like musicology. And everyone's wearing headphones and are listening to a piece of classical music. I don't remember which one.
This was wildly confusing to me for like one moment because the guy is writing on the chalkboard, the professor, and he's writing finale. And I'm like, oh, this is their final exam. But no, they're listening to the finale of this piece of music. But it seemed like, why are they... like, what's going on? Like, someone is, and then his friend is like late to the exam, but it's not an exam, so never mind.
Yeah, well, but all kinds of weird things do happen. Where like Mark, he begins to read his sister's letter because he has it with him, and he's listening to this composer's piece, and everybody in the class is wearing headphones and listening to music, and Mark just can't seem to get past like the first 2 sentences of this letter because there's this drop-dead gorgeous woman with a fluffy cat.
Anya Pironi is the actress. She played the babysitter / governess or whatever in House by the Cemetery. She was like evil and cleaning up after the monster there, but then she ended up getting killed by the monster too. So.
I didn't even notice.
Absolutely gorgeous woman, like the most striking eyes you'll ever see.
Yeah,
it's like a Siberian husky, the way those eyes just pierce.
She looks like a Siberian husky.
Or an Australian shepherd, that they have like really striking eyes.
Well, I would just compare her to an absolutely gorgeous woman with striking eyes.
Alexandra Daddario, then? I don't know.
But she's staring directly at Mark, and she's mouthing something. And we as the audience can't hear it, and Mark can't hear it, and he keeps on looking down to his letter, then back at her, and down to his letter, and back at her, and he just never reads this letter. And then spooky things start happening. Mark is feeling kind of weird, and then this window flies open, and the room is very windy, and then the piece ends, and everybody takes their headphones off, and this woman rushes out, and Mark rushes out to try to catch her, and he leaves.
And do you know who this woman is? This character? I
assumed she was supposed to be the witchy lady of Rome, but I don't know.
Yeah, she's Mater Lacrimarum, which I guess she is the main villain of The Mother of Tears, which I've still never seen, but I doubt it's the same actress. They probably get a young woman by that time because that was made like 30 years later.
It's also funny that they said that the New York sister was supposed to be the youngest, but this woman looks way younger.
Yeah, this one's supposed to be the most beautiful, though.
Oh, okay.
She's got like an eternal beauty, maybe, that, who cares about that? But yeah, because the New York one is the most cruel.
Yeah.
And then what's the German one? What is she? What's her deal?
I don't know. The most sinister.
What's she the most of? Oh, she's the wisest.
Oh, well, couldn't be that wise. She died, dude. But speaking of unwise things, I guess, Sarah, who is Mark's friend, she shows up late to this class, and she picks up Mark's letter when he runs away. We catch up with her after class in a cab. I guess she's going home. She opens this letter, and she just starts reading it. And she gets pretty, distressed. And she immediately asks the cabbie, she goes, "Hey, take me to the library." So he drops her off at a library, and then there's this weird bit where she stabs her finger on the cabbie's handle.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that's supposed to signify or mean, but that happens. So she goes into this library, and it's a little weird. You're getting some weird vibes from some of these patrons kicking around. And she does find a copy of The Three Mothers. And as soon as she starts reading it, the library is closing. So she's like, I guess I'll sneak this book out of here. And somehow, I don't remember how, but she gets turned around and lost and winds up in the basement of this library, where she opens a door and there's just dozens of boiling cauldrons. And a man wearing black gloves doing something. And she says, sorry, I've got turned around. I'm just trying to get out of the library. Can you show me the way? He goes, yeah, it's the other door. But he sees her holding the book in in the reflection of a mirror, and he just immediately starts to attack her.
The book!
He also, at one point, takes off the glove, and you see it's like a creepy old hand.
Yeah.
Like a monstrous hand.
Yes. But after Sarah throws the book away, she just skedaddles out of the library, and she heads home. And she's really scared, and she gets into the elevator in her building, and she meets a guy named Carlo. And she says, hey, can you come to my apartment because something's happened and I'm just really scared. I don't want to be alone right now. And Carlo, being a nice guy, he's like, yeah, of course. I've got nothing to do for a couple hours. I'll come and hang out. So they're in the apartment and Sarah's kind of slightly more relaxed. And she calls up Mark and says, hey, did you read your sister's letter? And he says, no, I didn't. I got sidetracked. And she goes, well, it's pretty crazy. Come over, I'll tell you all about it. Almost as soon as she hangs up the phone, the electricity in her apartment keeps on flickering on and off. Which is actually really neat because she's like listening to a record. When the lights are on, the record player is going, and as soon as it switches off, it's just dead silence and darkness. Which I really liked this scene a lot. Carlo, trying to be a man, he's like, I think it's the circuit breaker or whatever. I think it's the whatever the hell it is. Where is it? And Sarah's like, it's at the end of the hall. But I'm going to come with you because I don't want to be alone. Carlo heads into the breaker room, and he's fiddling around, and he's yelling back, I think I've got it. I think I'm fixing it now. I think we're going to be A-okay. When Sarah comes into the room, Carlo pops out around the corner, but he's got a fucking knife through his neck, and it's the coolest thing on the planet.
Yeah, it comes out the other side, too, right?
Yeah, and he's like...
It's like a full...
Yeah, and he's like spitting blood all over the place, and he falls on top of Sarah, and he's just like spurting blood everywhere all over. I don't know why I thought the scene was really funny. He's like holding on to her, like he's trying to attack her, but he's not, obviously, and she's trying to get away. But then the killer, who we don't see, we just see he has black gloved hands, which we saw earlier.
And we've also seen in every Italian movie ever, too. So not necessarily be the same character. It could be the killer from Don't Torture a Duckling, could be the killer from... Bird with the Crystal Plumage.
These are great names.
Your Vice is a locked room and only I have the key. Could be the killer from that. They all have weird names. They all have super long names, and they're big on animals.
Well, Sarah, much like an animal, was stuck like a fucking pig, dude. The killer rips the knife out of Carlo's neck and then just stabs her in the back and kills her.
Which I don't think you usually stick a pig in the back, so I'm going to dispute your analogy there.
Yeah, you're right. Go ahead and do it. I'll allow it.
Like Jesus and Judas, just stabbed in the back.
He Judased her. He Jesused her?
To reference the title Inferno, could this whole thing could very well make you end up in the ninth circle of Inferno. Perhaps even Judaica, the main section of the ninth circle where Satan is chewing infinitely, or eternally, on Judas, Brutus, and Cassius.
Cassius Clay?
No, and also Satan, people never get this, but Satan in Dante's Inferno is fuzzy. He is like fluffy and poofy. He's adorable, quite frankly. I mean, he's terrifying, but he is fuzzy, so that's nice. People haven't kept up with that since 1320. You don't typically see a fuzzy Satan.
No.
I think it's time for a fuzzy Satan comeback.
Well, before we get too far off this subject, I just want to say, have you heard of the Sounds of Hell? I think that's what it's called. In Hieronymus Bosch's Garden of Earthly Delights triptych.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, the Hell panel has some musical notes painted onto somebody's bum. And this demon is playing like a flute off of this sheet music that's carved on somebody's bum. And they have recreated the music, and they played in a loop, and they call it the Sounds of Hell or something. So if you just Google Sounds of Hell Hieronymus Bosch, it'll come up. And it's a pretty neat tune, if I'm honest.
Is it as awesome as the song in this movie?
No, well, there's some good songs, but I don't know if I liked this as much as...
No, the one song, I don't think, I think you were about to say it's not as good as the music to Suspiria, which it's not.
Well, I was going to say
100%.
anything done by that band, what were they called? Goblin?
Yeah, well, this isn't Goblin, which is noteworthy, but this is Keith Emerson of Emerson, Lake and Palmer fame. Mm-hmm. Prog rock musician, which Goblin also kind of a prog rock band, so we're still kind of doing this much more piano, although there's some synth throughout the score. But the song that they do that comes up later in the movie is like the most amazing piece of music I've ever heard. Like the one with actual singing, like a full choir and stuff.
Yeah, I like that
amazing. The score itself, not that memorable, but the song
No,
oh boy.
even I remember the score for, what was it, Deep Red was done by
Yeah,
Goblin,
Deep Red
right?
is a fantastic score. Yeah, I don't think that's listed as Goblin. I mean, it was Goblin, but maybe it was before Goblin was fully formed or something. But I think that lists the score as being done by Claudio Simonetti, who was like the leader of Goblin. But I think that maybe that was before Goblin was formed. I'm going to look that up quick. But I have, of course, seen Goblin along with Claudio Simonetti perform in person. They did a live in Milwaukee last around Halloween.
Oh,
they
that's
did a
right. Yeah.
live showing of the movie Suspiria in addition to the band Goblin performing the music, and it was awesome.
Oh, you lucky duck.
Claudio Simonetti would be the only, like, everyone else in the band was like kind of young, so he was the only one who was like there back in the day. But Goblin split at one point or another. This is true of every band goes through this. You know, there's multiple like Grateful Dead type bands touring. There was Phil Lesh, the Dead and Company, and then there's the whatever. So there were like two Goblin bands out there performing. Claudio Simonetti's Goblin is the one I saw, and they are, for lack of a better term, the official one. I'm sure that would be disputed by somebody, but
And I bet they're fucking awesome.
yeah, they were great. Okay, never mind. It's not. It's Deep Red, music by Giorgio Gaslini and Goblin.
Oh.
But yeah, this is music by like Keith Emerson and like some other guy, I think. But it's like some actual like Keith Emerson wrote it, and then the other guy. Maybe it's different in Italian movies where they credit the conductor of the orchestra in addition to the composer, whereas we usually would just credit the composer in American movies.
Well, the last thing that Mark sees of his friend is, rather confusedly, her falling through like a linen wall in her apartment. Her body falling through a linen wall when he walks in, when he's looking for her. I don't know what that's about. I don't know why the hallway was blocked by sheets, but it made for a neat kind of entrance. Afterwards, Mark calls Sarah, and he's like, hey, I didn't have time to read your letter, but they're not really able to communicate because the phone line is cutting in and out on them, and he just kind of hears, Rose, he just kind of hears Rose say, come to New York. I'll explain everything when you get here. They both hang up the phone, but instead of following Mark...
Well, she never really hangs up the phone.
You're right, she just kind of drops.
Yeah, technically.
Yeah, because instead of following Mark, we now go and follow Rose as she's trying to hide from a killer. This is a point in the movie that I realized that I really love the architecture of the sets, the architecture of the movie, if you will.
The production design?
Well, but it's even more.
We have actual words for this.
No, but it's more than that, because like you're using this kind of like almost like gothic I guess it is production design. Anyways.
Well, and also let me ask you, because we see some beautiful exteriors of the apartment building in New York, which is a striking building. Is that all a matte painting, or is that an actual building? Because part of it is set. Okay, but the building in Suspiria is an actual building that is like a historical building. Erasmus once lived there, but it looks like it looks like it would be a matte painting because it's just like so fantastical looking. This one kind of reminded me of that, so I'm not surprised to learn some of it isn't,
Yeah,
it looks like it could be a model in some of those shots, or a matte painting, something like that.
It is. I think every time that we see like a full view of the building, it is partial model, partial matte painting.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
And then when it's close up, like people entering and exiting the building, I think it's a set like that's probably like 20 odd feet high or something like that.
Sure.
This scene, there's lots of kind of like it is like this gothic kind of architecture, and you have lots of stained glass and just kind of like jagged angles, but then you have that mixed with very unique colors, like this kind of scarlety red and this really dark but vibrant green, and just all the sets make you feel kind of uncomfortable.
Well, and the coloring too. Some of it is like the actual like paint of the thing, but more of it is just the lighting. Like the certain sections of a room will be lit green or will be lit red, what have you. Especially like the inside of the antique store. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there's no real rhyme or reason to it. It's just to look neat and to look kind of creepy, maybe,
Yeah, well, it's actually funny because this, like, as I was thinking about, how the sets really add to the feel of the movie. You know, like, this feels a lot scarier and creepier than that dilapidated barn in Halloween 5, for instance, you know?
Low bar, but sure.
As I was as I was thinking that, Rose is literally attacked by the architecture, as she's attacked by the set itself. She's running from this killer. She cuts her hand open on a door handle, and she's bleeding all over the place. She eventually runs upstairs where there's a broken window, and it's just pouring outside. And all this water is just flowing into this broken window, and all over the floor. There's this big hefty puddle. She walks past a window frame or like a window pane, and it just flies open and breaks in her face. And then she's attacked from behind by some creepy ghoulish looking hands, and she's pulled backwards onto some nails on the edge of a windowsill, and a broken window is then used like a guillotine.
I like how it's not one clean cut too. They do it like 3 times, I think.
Yeah, they do. And there's a great shot where you think it's just going to be blood, but it cuts and you can actually see like the pane of glass in her neck. Mm-hmm. And it just looks really great. That's a great kill. Very shortly after this, Mark arrives in New York, and this scene kind of annoyed me.
Oh, I just want to say I like when he's like meeting the people in this apartment building. There's something kind of just fun about, you know, these Italian movies. Everybody's dubbed, so everybody's speaking English, but everyone talks the same way. No one has an accent. I just think that's so funny. There's something just kind of fun. It's like, it doesn't matter the geography of this. It doesn't matter like who's in what country. Everyone can talk to everybody, and you know, there's never like a linguistic barrier or anything. I just think that's kind of fun.
But this scene annoys me in this movie because, you know, I think we're about 48 minutes or about an hour in, and we're meeting like 6 new characters that we haven't met yet. And we have about 45 minutes left of the movie.
We're halfway through the movie before we really truly find our main character. Mm-hmm. I think that's a problem.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, you know, it could be Rose, it could be the friend, whoever, you know, it almost seems like she's going to be the main character for a bit. There's even a moment where you kind of feel like, oh, is Daria Nicolodi going to be the main character? I don't know.
Yeah, and that's what's annoying about this, too, because we meet this cast of characters, so we have, like, this concierge, I think, as she's described as, and I think her name's Carol, so I guess she runs the place, or she works for the place.
She was, like, the head of the dance academy in Suspiria, that actress.
Okay. We also have a nurse and her ward, who's an elderly man named Professor Arnold. And we also meet this woman, Countess Elise something or other.
Yeah, and that's Daria Nicolodi, who, I don't know if they were married yet, but that's eventually at least Dario Argento's wife. She was in Deep Red. I think that's maybe the first time they worked together. She wasn't in Suspiria, but she did co-write the screenplay with him for that.
She is a gorgeous woman, too, by the way.
I think Josh said the same thing, and I don't see it. I don't think she's ugly. I'm just like...
Okay, well,
I don't know.
Listen, we're having too many disagreements for our first episode of the season, Patrick.
I don't want to put her down or anything. She's like, she's whatever.
We meet her when she comes by Rose's room or apartment, and she's looking for Rose, and you can kind of hear her voice all over the apartment, and Mark eventually opens the door and says, "Was that you?" And she's like, "Oh, it was. There's pipes. There's pipes and holes in these apartments, and you can talk to each other." And we whispered to each other, and that's how we discovered it. Anyways, where's your sister? She's been missing. Mm-hmm. And Mark is like, "Oh, well, you know, I expected her to be here, and she's not, so I guess her being missing makes sense." Mark first hears about the 3 mothers when the Countess says, oh, she was freaking out about these 3 mothers, and she believes that, you know, that these witches are real, and yada, yada, yada. After some other stuff, Elise does tell Mark that she stepped in some bloodstains by Rose's front door.
He also sees something written, like, scratched across her desk. What did
No,
was?
it was his briefcase.
No, but there was something scratched on the desk, also.
Oh, I forgot.
I don't remember what it was. It was maybe Tenebrarum or something like that.
Maybe. Well, then also too, like when he got in the elevator to go up to his sister's apartment, he gets in with the nurse and Professor Arnold, and the professor scratches something. Like he touches his briefcase with his finger, and then when he gets upstairs, he realizes that he's scratched Mater into his briefcase. But there's some blood out by the front door of Rose's place, and the two begin to investigate. So I forget exactly what happens to Mark, but he does get knocked out by knockout gas. And Elise, in my probably one of my favorite scenes ever, is attacked by a bunch of cats as she's trying to escape a killer.
This is admittedly a hard scene to take seriously, because you can just tell the way some of the cats are hitting her. Someone is literally just throwing cats at her, and it's hilarious.
Well, and one cat lands right on her face, and it's like in her it's in her hair, and she's freaking out. So that's great. It kind of in all this confusion, somebody just, like, it's such a lazy kill. Somebody just sneaks up with a knife and stabs her. Kills her.
Yeah. There's something, this is very similar in Suspiria. There's a scene where someone's wandering around and she's being chased, she hides, and then she eventually falls into this, like, a bunch of barbed wire. And it's just like this, where she's, like, struggling, and you know, okay, she's just going to die from this, but then someone comes up with a razor and just slits her throat anyways. You know? So it's similar to this. Like, the cats could easily have just killed her, I guess, but, you know, speed things up a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Elise is dead, but Mark isn't. He's found, right, by Carol and the nurse, and they just put him to bed in Rose's apartment, I think. The next morning, Mark runs down to the lobby. He sees Carol, the concierge, and says, "Hey, thanks for all your help. I don't remember anything from last night. But hey, while I'm talking to you, who's that crazy old man that was just in here complaining about all the feral cats?" Because he had feral cats break into his store and break a statuette. And Carol goes, "Oh, that's old man Kazanian, and he's the guy who owns the bookstore." So Mark rushes out to talk to him, and he says, "Hey, my sister is Rose. Do you know where she is? Do you know anything about the book that you let her buy? What's going on?" And Kazanian just says essentially nothing. He's like, I don't know. The last time I saw your sister was the other day. I used to sell her things. Okay, goodbye.
Yeah, he's like, who am I to know anything about my clients? I just sell stuff to them.
Yeah.
He doesn't give a fuck.
And then at this point, for like 15 minutes, the movie becomes a showcase for fucked up deaths. That night, Kazanian, who has captured all of the stray cats that have been coming into his shop, stuffs them.
Puts them in a burlap sack.
Yeah.
And he's going to go drown them in Central Park.
Oh, which, by the way, most of this movie, Patrick, was actually, all of this movie was filmed in Rome on different sets and sound stages and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But this stuff was actually shot in Central Park in 1979.
Which begs the question, did they just unleash several hundred rats on the city of New York?
No, they didn't, because all the live rat stuff, so they sent that actor. Well, okay, just to sum it up real quick, he drowns all these cats. He puts them in this sack, drowns them, drops them in a pond, drowns them, and then he falls over. And as he's trying to get up in this muddy pond, like 1,000 rats just come out of all these culverts and stuff and just start gnawing at him. And he's screaming for help, like, they're killing me, they're biting me, they're eating me alive.
It goes on forever, too.
Yeah, there's like a hamburger guy or like a hot dog vendor.
Yeah, hot dog
in his truck, and he runs across the lake, which, by the way, I read they put like an acrylic floor so he could run across the lake because it was too deep there. And he runs over and you think he's going to help, but he just fucking pulls out a knife and starts chopping him in the back of the neck like 5 times and kills him. Mm-hmm. But when they sent the actor in to this pond in Central Park, they attached a bunch of fake rats to him, which you can see them in some of the close-ups.
Yeah.
But all the real rat stuff was filmed back in Rome.
Oh, okay.
Like they had a set with a bunch of with muddy water and culverts, and they just released it, or they captured a bunch of rats or whatever. Yeah. I don't know. So that's a weird, fucked up death. But it gets better because Countess Elise, her butler, is like, this fucking dumb bitch. She's not coming back. She's dead. I know it. And Carol, the concierge, she's like, are you sure? But if she doesn't, we can have all of her fine jewelry, and we'll live like a count and countess. He goes, I'm going to go upstairs and check for more jewelry or whatever the hell he's doing. And the concierge hears a thump, and she goes upstairs to find his body propped up in the corner with his eyes popped out of his sockets and like blood all over his face, which is great. Then the concierge, I love this, she was carrying like a candelabra, and she got so startled she dropped it, and she lit a fire, and she's trying to put the fire out. It's like on like a big heavy window curtain, and she's trying to put the fire out, and then the whole curtain that's on fire just falls on her, and she starts screaming, and she backs out of a window and falls like 3 stories through a smaller glass window to her death, which is awesome.
Also, it's easy to miss in the moment, but this moment determines the end of the movie. It's kind of weird how that plays out.
Yeah, and you're right. It's so bizarre. So she falls through this window, and then the building is just slowly catching fire. In the room she was in, on the ground floor, whatever. As that's happening, Mark solves the quote-unquote soles of the shoes riddle, whatever you want to call it. He sees that a bunch of ants are crawling through the floor, and he just starts like dismantling the floor in Rose's apartment, and he busts through into a crawl space underneath her apartment, where a cat jumps down and then eats a live mouse. He crawls out of this crawl space, and we see that via a staircase, he can access a bunch of other apartments. And he continues to head down the staircase where he comes to a landing, and it turns out he's overlooking Professor Arnold's room, where we see him get wheeled in by the nurse, and then the nurse leaves. Mark rushes down to talk to Arnold, and the professor actually reveals himself to be Varelli, the guy who wrote the book, the guy who built the buildings.
The alchemist, who is like 100 years old now, or maybe 700 years old, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
He talks, he does the Dr. Phibes method of talking.
He does,
hooks that thing
cool.
up to his throat.
Yeah. Yeah, and that actually ultimately also leads to his death, because he's telling Mark that he's also kind of trapped here, and he feels bad about building these buildings for these sisters, and all the deaths are forever kind of going to be on his conscience. And then as Mark leans in, Varelli tries to stab him with like this needle full of some kind of liquid. Mark jumps back, and Varelli just kind of falls over in his wheelchair, and he begins to choke himself with his voice cable. Mark sucks all of his poison out, or whatever it is, and he's talking to Varelli, and Varelli's like, I'm gonna die, I'm close to death, but I just want you to know you're still being watched. So Varelli dies, Mark carries on through kind of the rest of the building, and he finds...
And here's where the music kicks in. This is the song.
And it
is so good.
Fantastic, I agree. What I wasn't expecting was that this New York sister was Varelli's nurse, which I guess makes sense. She's sitting at a table with her head down, and she has like candles, they're lit, but then some of them are actually on fire, and there's other things in the room that are on fire, and she's kind of laughing. She's like, this whole place is going to burn, like it did before, whatever that means.
Possibly a reference to the house or the building Suspiria burned down.
But then something crazy happens, and she's talking to Mark, and then she kind of warps into this mirror. And this is my favorite.
So some really cool stuff here when she like just disappears and you only see her in the mirror. That stuff is really cool and creepy.
That's really cool. And then
and then it gets goofy.
Well, yeah. Well, then she goes, I'm known as Mater Tenebrarum, but most people call me and my sisters Death. And then she turns into like a Grim Reaper and busts out of the mirror.
Well, I guess it's a Grim Reaper. It's death personified, but it just looks like a fat skeleton.
Looks like a foam skeleton.
It's a skeleton costume, but it's worn over someone who's wearing black, so therefore you see all the bones and stuff, but there's more body than just the bones, so it just looks way too silly, unfortunately.
Yeah, well then what's even sillier is that she begins to chase Mark, but the whole building's on fire, and he just kind of stumbles his way out the front door. As he's outside, Mater Tenebrarum is inside still as this fat Grim Reaper. And as soon as she realizes that Mark has gone out, she just screams and lifts her hands, and then the building collapses on top of her. She's dead, I guess. And that's also the end of the movie.
Yeah, super abrupt ending. That's an Argento thing.
Yeah, and Patrick, after watching this, I'd really love to know your thoughts on just how kind of weird this movie was and how plot light it was.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. The Italian movies tend to not make a lot of sense. Let's be honest. There's a lot more focus on feeling and mood and atmosphere in these Italian horror movies than there is on plot. That is particularly a problem in some of the ones that seem to need the plot the most, i.e. the mysteries, the giallos. Mm-hmm. I would say that's less of an issue in something like Suspiria or Inferno, which are these like surrealist nightmare movies. However, it is a problem with Inferno because it is so apparent, I do think. Not that Suspiria is like the greatest plot ever in a movie, but it's just a lot easier to follow. Even just the main character, we can follow her throughout the Jessica Harper throughout the entire movie. Like, we know what she's doing, what she needs to learn. I think the biggest problem with this movie is that the movie takes about half of its runtime to figure out who the main character is, and it takes so much time, they never actually figure out what he needs to do. He's literally, like, when he solves that mystery of the under the foot thing, and then he goes, and he's stumbling into the professor's room, and he still doesn't know what he's looking for.
Yeah.
What he's, like, trying to do, and I think that's, like, really a problem. So it's frustrating, although I will say, like, that song does so much to make up for its flaws. That song is so great. It's like one of the best things ever.
You know what I think another problem with this is that I think they were trying to set up for the third movie of this trilogy.
Which makes it all the weirder that he didn't make it for another 27 years, if that is the case, and I don't know if that is.
It's just so weird that we're following two main characters and then a third main character, and then two of the three main characters die. Then we're introduced to a handful of other characters with 45 minutes left.
I wanted the cat-killing antique dealer to be the hero of the movie. I was hoping for that.
I know. He was the only one who seemed to understand what was, like, sort of going on. And he was like, I don't want a part of it. I just want to sell my antiques and kill these fucking
I don't know if
cats.
he did. That's the thing. I don't know if anyone ever really knows what's going on.
Well, also, what was up with the concierge? Right when Mark walks into the place, he looks over and I had to turn the volume up to hear it, but she says, they're looking at meat. And she says, take it to the usual place. And then Mark goes, hello? And then they cover the meat up. Was that supposed to be part of Rose?
Possibly. Yeah, I think the implication is that, like, anyone involved with that actual building, with the exception of its tenants, are in on the witchcraft. It's kind of like Suspiria. It's like everyone, not every student, but like anyone who's like running the dance academy is in on it.
But then she got killed. She lit herself on fire. Oh, I guess they didn't kill her.
She kind of did that herself.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't know.
That's right, yeah.
And then that's also a huge problem, too. So I think the biggest problem, ultimately, is that at no point in the movie does the main character really know what he needs to be doing for the plot to move on. It just kind of happens to him. Mm-hmm. Which can be done in an interesting way, and I don't, deny that this movie has interesting visuals and all that. But another huge problem this movie has is its conclusion. It basically has the same climax as Suspiria, right? Where they stumble upon this character who becomes a monster. In Suspiria, they bring to life her friend who has a knife ready to stab her, but then also this mother is like this creepy old lady. But at least in Suspiria, the hero of the movie, the heroine of the movie, did something.
Yeah.
She stabbed the little shadowy figure of the mother. Here, Mark literally doesn't do anything. It's just like, he's just lucky. It's just like, oh, thank God they accidentally started the building on fire an hour ago. And like, it's just a really not satisfying climax, honestly. And Suspiria is also kind of not a satisfying climax, but it's far more satisfying than this.
Yeah, actually, in fact, nobody in this movie actually does anything.
I know, that's the problem.
People either die before they can relay information, or they just flat out don't do anything at all.
Yeah, like, we never even really feel... You were saying the Kazarian, like, is the one who knows the stuff. I don't know if that's true, but we never find out what he knows and doesn't know.
There was a bit that I glossed over, but he was hanging out in his bookstore, and somebody snuck in and stole 3 copies of The Three Mothers off of his bookshelf. And then some cats got in and wrecked the place. But, like, he doesn't seem to notice that his books are gone. And you would think that if he has, like, 3 copies of that book, that he kind of knows what's going on. You know what I mean?
Or that it's not an antique.
Yeah.
There's that, too.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, the movie didn't make sense. The only thing I really liked about the movie were the visuals. And the deaths, for the most part.
Well, yeah, and I was going to say, I think it's not just the visuals, because I would say just the direction as a whole. The construction of certain scenes is just really, really good. Dario Argento knows how to deliver on suspense and shock. He knows how to build up to a gory death.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it goes on for too long, like with the rats and stuff. But all those scenes are well constructed. It's a really, really well directed film, but the script is just kind of nothing. And I think like the sunken ballroom is such a visually striking scene. The scene in the auditorium for the musicology class with the Mater Lacrimarum staring at him, whispering, putting a hex on him or something. That scene is amazing. That might be my favorite scene in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree.
So much of this movie is well constructed. It's just the script isn't.
Yeah, and that's really my...
And the script is the weakest part of Suspiria, but I still think it's just bad. It works better in Suspiria, and I think everything works better in Suspiria, but I do think the story works better in that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I really do.
So, on that bombshell, Jim, which of these two movies do you prefer? Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, or Inferno, starring Tom Hanks and Felicity Jones?
I'm going to have to go with Inferno, just because it's visually striking, and it does have a more interesting story, even if I don't really like it that much. It does have a more interesting story than Michael Myers walks around and kills people for the fourth time in a row.
There's you should say there's shades of interesting story in Inferno. I do think all the stuff with the mothers is has the potential to be interesting.
Yeah, all that lore
I just think
stuff
that it's not told well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's told better in Suspiria when we don't get all that stuff about the mothers. Really, I guess I don't know. I don't know what that says about it, but
I forgot to bring this up. Did you know that Argento said that this was his least favorite movie that he's made?
I didn't know that, but I wonder when that quote came from. I wonder if he would still say that after he made Dracula 3D.
Well, also, apparently he contracted hepatitis while he was filming this.
What?
And,
Was it the rats?
He had to shoot portions of this movie from his back. They had to, angle cameras and get mirrors and stuff so that he could film this movie while laying down. So some people have said maybe he doesn't like it because it just brings back memories of him having hepatitis. It's just a miserable
time to shoot, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think this is that great of a movie, but I do think it's better than same old Michael Myers in Halloween 5.
It's certainly better than Halloween 5. I would go so far as to say this is better than almost any film in the Halloween franchise, except for the first and probably the third. It's really on the strengths of the visuals and the direction, and not much else. But those visuals go a long way. The song goes a long way. I've mentioned that obviously a number of times, but that's because
it's awesome.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's a better film, and I mean, it's a decent movie. I don't love it. It's certainly interesting to watch. It's far more satisfying on a visual level, obviously, than any other, on an emotional level or anything like that. But that's true of all Argento movies. It's just that usually they have a little bit of a stronger plot or something than this. And then on top of that, Halloween 5 is pretty damn bad. There's some redeeming qualities, but not many. And not as strong as the visuals of Inferno.
Yeah.
So, Jim, how do you think this holds up as a drive-in double feature?
It's interesting because I want to say that they don't hold up, or they're not that good together, because they both are kind of a little boring, slow. Halloween 5 isn't very good, but I think they do work well in their dullness together, and the fact that they're both kind of lesser versions of their originals. So I think it's okay. I don't think it's the best matchup we've had.
No double feature with Halloween 5 can be the best.
No,
that's just true.
It's definitely not the best matchup, but there's nothing inherently terrible about this pairing. Well,
yeah, and I'll say it's a decent double feature. I'm going to say that Inferno as a second feature to almost anything is just interesting because the visuals just grab you, and it's such a delight to look at. And in particular, as a follow-up to kind of a bland movie, Inferno wakes you up. It keeps might not keep your interest on the story, but it certainly keeps your interest on what's actually happening on the screen, at least. That I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, well, I guess that concludes our first episode of Season 4. A little dull, but I think the rest of the season's probably going to be pretty good.
I guess I have a higher opinion of Inferno than you do. Maybe I'm just more of an Argento guy.
No, I do like Inferno a lot. I really do. But for me, it's the plot that really kind of kills it for me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Inferno is an incredibly flawed movie, but I still like it because
but it is so much fun to watch just because it is so visually interesting.
All right, well, here's what we're doing next time. We have a returning director. Not from this episode, but a director we have featured, and that's Kinja Fukasaku with the film Battle Royale from 2000, his last film, although he shot part of Battle Royale 2 or whatever the second movie in that series is called. And then we have The Valley of the Gwangi, which is a movie about dinosaurs in the Old West. I'm tempted to say it's Harryhausen effects. I could be wrong about that, though, and I don't want to slander his name if those effects don't end up being great, but I think it's Harryhausen. Yeah, this is dinosaurs in the Old West. Like, that's fun.
Yeah, that is fun. And it's also fun because, I don't think we've mentioned, you kind of gave me like a little sneak peek into what was coming up for the first couple episodes, but I didn't actually know what the movies were going to be.
Yes, this is the first time I have mentioned the titles of these films to you, but I gave you little hints. I probably told you this second episode we had a director that we've had before or something like that. But
yeah, that's exactly what you said.
Okay. And also, so feel free to check us out on YouTube if you want to just hear our review of Inferno just by itself without all the other nonsense. Check us out on YouTube and check us out on Patreon, where we are offering free trials for a week, and you can also, if you continue to follow us, you will be able to have early access to all of our future episodes, as well as access to extended versions of the episodes, so you can hear some jokes and things that were cut out of the main episode. And then, of course, monthly commentary tracks by Jim and myself, where we talk about some of the movies that we love, some of which that we have featured on the podcast, and many of which, of course, we haven't. So check us out there, and we will be seeing you folks next week from the Valley of the Gwangi, of course.
Hey, Patrick.
What's that?
Good to be back, pal.
Oh, sure.